and welcome to the CodeX Cantina for part 4 of our 5-part series on the drawing of 3 and breaking it down from a literary aspect. I am Una.
And I don't know who I am today. You can put down on the thing, unknown.
Uncrypto, if
Which
you will.
personality are you getting today?
We are on part 4. We are finishing up Data on the other side and then the reshuffle chapter. So basically finishing off this storyline right before we go through our third and final door for this book.
Dun, dun, dun.
So in terms of plot, basically all that happened this section was Roland, Eddie, and Detta were traveling through loose sand. They're kind of developing scurvy from eating nothing but lobster. Detta is just really being resistant, tripping the
wheelchair,
not eating food because she thinks it's poison. And basically, Roland becomes so weak that Eddie has to run forward with Odetta now on the wheelchair. She's flipped personalities. Goes, drops her off, makes love to her. They have a lobster dinner, delicious. Starts hearing noises, like a lion. Knows that she's in danger. Even though he was told not to leave the gun with her, he does. Comes back with the cart to grab Roland, and then go north. And basically, once they get there, Odetta is gone, and Roland's like, "You idiot! Now Detta has the gun, just as I told you. You better shape up, Eddie, because I'm going through that door, and you better protect me." And he heads through the door called the Pusher. And that's basically the plot for this section.
I think you missed one major, huge point, though, is that Odetta and Eddie have fallen in love.
I said they make love. I said it real quick.
Okay, well, they make love. Yes, they have physical relations. They have coitus, but
I'll tell you what,
they have fallen in love.
Let me go into my first talking point then. Let me kick this off. Something that I think is interesting from a literary... It's here in this book. It's good, but it's also so relevant in movies and other books that you'll read. I think I want to talk about this just so you can look for these and be like, oh, okay. And it's obvious, but it's so much deeper than what I think most people give it credit to. And that's the fact that Odetta ate dinner with Eddie.
Okay, where are you going with this?
So eating food is it's sensuous. It's sensual.
I like this. This is interesting.
How many times, Crypto, have you eaten dinner with your wife or gone on a date, someone that you like or are interested in? How many times have you gone to dinner with like a mortal enemy that you hate? You would never do that. For some reason, eating food is just like this very intimate thing for human beings. And what happens is filmmakers, authors, they know this. And eating is so boring. You don't put it in a book.
Like nobody ever goes to the bathroom in books. You know?
No, it's boring.
Weird.
There's no purpose for it. There's a very specific literary purpose to eating, and that is either when you're like either sharing something or making peace basically with someone, or kind of coming over that roadblock of connection with someone. So you'll see in this story you had Detta wouldn't eat the poison, and you had this wonderful backdrop story about the scallops poisoning Odetta when she was younger, making you think that's why she didn't do it. But from a literary aspect, Detta didn't trust them. She's not going to eat with them is kind of what he's going for there. And then when Odetta gets in control, she's really connecting with Eddie, and she starts to eat with Eddie is the idea that these are the two that are coming together. And what do they do in these chapters? Right? So I think a good example to this too is, and this is used so often, is one of my favorite examples is, have you seen the movie Hook from like the 90s?
Oh yeah, Robin Williams.
The Lost Boy scene where he cannot use his imagination. He doesn't connect with these boys. It's at the dinner table when he needs to use his imagination to see the food that he starts to become their leader, that he starts to become one with the Lost Boys. Bang-a-rang, Rufio! Like, it's that idea that when you eat with someone, and there's movies that take advantage of this too, where like it just becomes very sexual. That particularly depending on the time and era that the book or movie was released or where it was released, you can't necessarily show sex. This is a good way to represent it and have a very sensuous scene without directly showing it or talking about it. Okay, you and I are watching The Mandalorian on Disney Plus, right?
Yes, fantastic.
What was a key moment for the most recent episode? It'll probably take me a little bit to edit this together, about the Mandalorian and eating.
Yeah, that's the only time he takes his helmet off is finally when he eats.
And does he ever eat it with anyone else?
Nope.
And who is the most disconnected character on that show?
Yeah, he's all alone. But Baby Yoda's breaking him down. He's breaking those walls down. He's tearing them down.
But just any time, like food or such as mentioned, just keep this in mind. This is a very important literary technique.
And obviously movies and shows too.
If they're showing eating, it's that opportunity to make that connection. And I'm sure some people will be like, well, what about the mobster movies where they whack the guy? Isn't it specifically to that point that they're doing it at a very vulnerable moment? Like that opening moment of eating with someone, that's when they whack the guy. Like, it feels worse to whack the guy at dinner than it does when he's walking to work, right?
Yeah. And a lot of times they always make a point of what type of food is there. They always try to bring that up. Like, I would never kill you over my wife's noodles because, like, they're super famous and they're very important to our family. But I'll kill you over some cheapo pizza from the store.
Yeah. So just think about that when you're reading these books. I just wanted to point that out because that's a very popular and common thing. All right. So something we need to talk about. Eddie, when he looked through the door, saw his own face. Why?
So I think this brings us back to our point of Stephen King putting himself in the story, right?
I would probably go that direction too.
I think that King has put himself into a lot of these characters. You have said many times, you write what you know, right? And I think that Eddie is him on the drugs. I think that you could also say that King is Detta and Odetta. He hasn't found himself yet, or he's still trying to find himself after the drugs. How does he fit into this? Is he this person or is he this person? You could also say that he's Roland, right? He's the hero of the story, and he wants to be a better person. And we can speculate what he thinks of himself maybe as we introduce more people into the story later. But I think that all of them looking through these doors is a way that King is looking into himself.
I think I took it very similar. I think what I interpreted from that is this whole Eddie versus... I mean, the Eddie thing was very... Stephen King invited you to assume it was autobiographical because of that Wilson storyline kind of parallel.
And the drugs and all that.
And I feel like with Detta and Odetta, this is a very important section where he sees himself. Maybe it goes a different direction later on. I can't remember. But I feel like this is inviting us to... in the whole how they explore Detta and Odetta and how they're trying to reconcile these two people living in the same body. Human beings are complex. It's so easy for an author to make a junkie just look stupid, an idiot. You can't trust him, right? Like they say that in this one. But Stephen King still makes Eddie smart. They make him, as he sobers up, that he's a real person and he actually does have this really witty personality. He's giving a lot of depth to these characters. And I think this Detta-Odetta thing and seeing Eddie, I think you're on the exact same path where I was, where he's kind of exploring of this, what does it mean to be me? And you could take me and put me in some situation. I might react differently on a day where I'm under a lot of stress and just had it, versus a day where, not much has happened and I'm really patient and I can handle things differently. People can act differently even just based on what they're going through in their lives. They can wear these different masks. And I think it's interesting to see the way he's kind of exploring Detta and Odetta from that perspective, where it's how are these two totally different people, maybe the same person, reacting totally differently. And I know multiple personality and all that stuff, but I think that's kind of the literary aspect that he's kind of exploring with Eddie saying, I love Odetta. I don't know how I feel about Detta. I kind of put up with Detta, but can't that be true also of maybe those people that are in a very, anger-filled relationship where sometimes it's, I hate you, but I still love you because there's still that person on the other side. I think human beings are complex, and I think this is a very cool way to explore it.
Yeah, and I think there's a really good quote in there about this. It says, although Eddie cared for the woman that was the other part of her, was near to loving her just on the basis of the brief time that he had seen her and spoken with her, he felt his hand itch to close around her windpipe and choke it until she could never laugh again. And so not only is, I think that he has the internal struggle, but also he is writing about these relationships of how you interact with other people depending on what kind of day you have. I mean, 90% of the time, you have a very standard way of how you interact with your children or your spouse or with your boss. But when something happens, it can change, right? And you'll act a different way, and you just want to choke them. And you would normally never do that about somebody that you love. And that's interesting of how he's seeing himself in these characters and how these characters are interacting, or how maybe he feels he's interacting with the rest of the world as a sober man, opposed to how he interacts with as a drunk guy or a stoner or a cokehead or whatever. And I've known a lot of people that in my life who were okay people, but they were so fun to be around when they were all messed up, or they were, oh god, that guy's so funny, but then you meet him when he's out of his element and he's not that funny.
All right, let's jump into this third door. It says the pusher. Do you remember, did you have any expectations of what to expect when you were going through the pusher door? This isn't our first read through this, so we won't spoil anything. We know who's in the third door. Do you remember what your thoughts were of what you to expect on the third door, your first read through?
So since this is like so sci-fi and there seems to be some play with different worlds and time and stuff, I totally thought that we were going to either have like a young Eddie or something, or we were going to have like a little kid Eddie and it was going to be like his dad, and we were going to see that relationship. Eddie's pushing the wheelchair. Eddie even like quotes himself about being a pusher. Eddie,
there is that quote, yep.
Yeah, Eddie, drugs and pushing and pusher all seems to...
Well, and who technically is looking for drugs here, and who needs drugs here? Roland is looking for drugs. He's sick. He needs something.
Yeah.
Eddie is looking for drugs because he's always fighting that addiction, as he says. He's never truly over it. And then Detta and Odetta arguably need drugs. I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. I can't diagnose. I can't talk about what someone needs, but there's a mental disorder of some sort there. I would assume there's some type of drugs that ought to be prescribed. So
some
to have the door,
Wellbutrin, I think is what it's
so
called.
to have a door called the pusher, and for Eddie to call himself the pusher, like you said, he's pushing everyone through this exactly. I assume that there's going to be some play in words on that. I remember my first read through when I was looking at this.
Yeah, we can't get too much into it. We will the next video, obviously. We can elaborate some more on that for those of you who maybe haven't read the story yet. But it is very interesting of where the story goes. And again, Stephen King at his best.
Yeah. All right, so with that said, guys, please consider subscribing. We do literary breakdowns of a lot of classics, including fun Stephen King books like this as well. So please subscribe to hear more from us. Una, out.
Peace.